Welcome to the Hollywood Raw Podcast, Raw Rundown. My name is Adam Glyn. Not with me today is Dax Holt. He's still on vacation. Like I said earlier in the week, he's on his 15th vacation of the year. I don't know what's going on in that guy's life, or if we have the same deal here. But he's on a cruise, I think now. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing for Thanksgiving. I might even make Matthew McConaughey's tuna salad that he's been making. Have you seen this stuff, by the way, guys? Matthew McConaughey's tuna salad, or his tuna. I don't eat tuna salad, by the way. So that, bear with me. It's the smell to me. I'll eat like sushi tuna, but like tuna fish like that, I don't really. It's a scent thing to me. But Matthew McConaughey's tuna recipe is kind of going viral. To be honest with you, I don't eat tuna, but it does look pretty good. I would potentially give it a try. The only reason I would give it a try is because I do know there is a lot of protein in it, and I'm trying to always get as much protein as possible, especially as I get older. Currently on TV, I'm watching the John Bonet Ramsey documentary, which everyone's like, you already know the story. I'm like, I know the story, but it's interesting to kind of hear different perspectives on it and how the media was kind of used as an advantage for the FBI. It's very unique. But then I'm also about to start the show Landmine on Paramount. The Billy Bob Thornton show. So I'm only like 10 minutes into the first episode right now. First time watching a show on Paramount, so bear with me. Today is our Raw Rundown. Usually Dax is with me, like I said, but he's not here, so I'm going to try my best to do Dax's job today. We weren't originally going to do this episode today. It's Thanksgiving week. Usually it's a slow week in the week of entertainment news, but just so happened, a lot of news dropped this week, and that's why we're doing the podcast today. I wasn't going to do it, but then there were so many stories that dropped. I felt it was necessary to give you guys as much information of what's going on in the world of entertainment news, so you guys know everything that's going on. So when you sit around during the holiday weekend, you know what's going on in the world of pop culture. Usually we do top 10 stories. This week there is some big stories, but there wasn't 10. Like, I reached out to a lot of outlets. Is there any stories, I even sent to my list, is there any stories I'm not thinking about? And then there was other stories, but we're doing 8 stories today. These 8 stories actually did pretty well in traffic. There was other stories, but for the most part, these top 8 stories were the ones that people were generally clicking on. So we're only doing 8 today, not 10 like we usually do for our Raw Rundown. How do we give you the top 8 stories of the week today? It goes by Google search, it goes by data, and lastly, it goes by our personal opinions. But honestly, it just comes down to the data at this point. So that's what it is. All right, let's really get into the Raw Rundown. That's why you guys are here with me today. You're not listening for hear me gibberish. And again, I'm going to do my best to do Dax's job because he's not here today. But I'm going to try my best. This is not my expertise. It's not my expertise, but we're just trying to give you an episode so you guys have something to tune in or listen to for the holiday weekend. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way. I hope you guys had a great holiday. All right. Number 8, Jim Abrams, the writer-director who helped create some huge comedy classics, has passed away at the age of 80. He passed away of natural causes of Tuesday at his home in Santa Monica, California. If you're wondering who Jim Abrams is, I actually didn't know the guy. I didn't know who he was until they told me what he did. He did some of the biggest, actually, in my opinion, some of the biggest comedy classics of all time. He did movies like Airplane, which hit theaters in 1980, which was a spoof of the 1970s disaster. Starred guys like Robert Hayes, Julie Haggerty, had small roles with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Robert Stack and Lloyd Bridgers and Peter Graves. But Airplane is a comedy classic. It was a very shtick sort of style comedy. And that's what he did with a lot of his other movies. And I'll tell you some of the other movies he did, this guy, Jim Abrams. These movies he did, he co-wrote and produced them with 2 brothers, Jerry Zucker and David Zucker. They did Airplane. They did the Naked Gun series, which I find, if you've never seen the Naked Gun series, I don't know how old their audience is. It is so funny. There's so many good lines. Leslie Nielsen was fucking hysterical. There's these movies, they weren't just like slapstick comedy. They were just, they're well written. There was just great lines in them. I don't know how they thought of them, but the team of Jim Abrams worked with both the Zucker brothers, David Zucker and Jerry Zucker. They grew up together in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They directed movies on, he directed a big movie of his own, Jim Abrams. He directed Big Business, and he also did the movie Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2, which I love Hot Shots Part 2 with Charlie Sheen. So funny, so good. I remember the first time I saw the movie in the theater. I remember the exact theater where I saw Hot Shots Part 2. But again, the style of comedy that these guys did was very unique. I mean, he put O.J. Simpson in Naked Gun. Who would have thought to put O.J. Simpson in the movie? But O.J. Simpson, believe it or not, had good comedy chops and did a good job as playing a cop in the movie Naked Gun. In the movie Airplane, they had this was like a great line in the movie Airplane. He goes, one of the guys goes, "Surely you can't be serious," and then he goes, "I am serious, and don't call me Shirley." Again, so stupid, but so funny. So again, you probably might not know who Jim Abrams was, but he passed away this week of 80. Comedy legend. Number 7, Dan Schneider. Remember him? He made headlines this year when that documentary "Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV." It aired on the Investigation Discovery Channel earlier this year. The docuseries covered the Schneider's time at the network, with former child stars and crew members recalling their experiences on the sets of various shows, including All That and The Amanda Show. Well, he scored a legal win after a judge ruled that his defamation lawsuit against the Investigation Discovery Network Quiet on Set can be moved forward. He thought this documentary that they did against him was total defamation, ruined everything that he kind of stood for. A Los Angeles Superior Court judge ruled earlier this month that Schneider, 58 years old, can proceed with his lawsuit. The judge also denied an attempt by Warner Brothers Discovery and Maxine Productions to get the lawsuit thrown out. This is manifestly not a case brought by Schneider on frivolous grounds, simply to harass defendants, read the court ruling. He's suing defendants about a documentary they made about him that he focuses on his activities in which a reasonable viewer might conclude, making damning implications about his conduct. The judge agreed with Schneider and his legal team that the defamation can be applied based on the trailer in the docuseries implying Schneider sexually abusing children who worked on a show, that Schneider was a child sexual abuser. Now, if you saw the documentary, it was very one-sided. It could be, no matter what you think of this guy Schneider, in which he did apologize, we'll get into that, for some of his actions. He was basically concerned the way they defamed everything he did in his career. Schneider originally filed the lawsuit in March for unspecified damages. In the paperwork, Schneider called Quiet on Set a hit job that destroyed his legacy and reputation. Schneider parted ways with Nickelodeon back in 2018, previously denied inappropriate conduct allegations. He has since addressed the allegations made by cast members. He did a video he did some sort of YouTube interview, and he said, "Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret, or definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology." So I think he realizes some of the stuff he might have done might have been, again, I'm assuming that I feel like he must assume that some stuff he did might have been taken out of context, but it was definitely not right, especially at the time. And some people didn't have a good experience. I think he feels bad, but he's suing the production company for the documentary. How it turns out, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some sort of settlement when it all comes out. The documentary did very well and whatnot. So, all right, number 6, Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Remember they had this huge, rap battle this past summer. Yeah, and Kendrick Lamar, all of a sudden, his song, "They're Not Like Us," became like pretty much the song of the summer. That song was so big that it might have got him to perform at this year's Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar is going to be the halftime show at this year's Super Bowl in New Orleans. That's how big that summer was. Well, Drake is alleging in a court filing Monday that Universal Music Group conspired to artificially inflate Lamar's summer hit song "Not Like Us" on Spotify by using bots, payola, and other tactics. Now, if you don't know what payola is, I'll get into that, so I'll inform you what that is. This summer, the two released several diss tracks targeting each other. Lamar's "Not Like Us," released in May, was perhaps the most popular, enjoying a multi-week stay on Billboard's Hot 100 number one. However, Drake claimed in the petition filed Monday in a New York Supreme Court that the success of "Not Like Us" was due to deceptive practices and not organic streams. Drake initiated legal action by his company Frozen Moments LLC. A petition is typically a precursor to a lawsuit in seeking the preservation of evidence in New York. Now, why would he file the claim in New York and not other states? because when you file in different states, you have access to more information. He filed more than one lawsuit in different states. I think one was in Texas, one in New York. When you do this type of lawsuit, you're able to get more information. Most of the claims in the suit are aimed at Universal Music Group, which has no relation to NBC Universal. So just it's a Dutch American owned company, has no relation to NBC Universal, the parent company of NBC News. In the petition, by the way, he claimed Universal Music Group launched a campaign to manipulate and saturate the streaming services and airwaves with a song Not Like Us in order to make the song go viral. Universal Music Group allegedly charged Spotify licensing rates 30% lower than usual rates for Not Like Us in exchange for Spotify recommending the song to users who are searching for unrelated songs and artists, the filing claimed. The song had 900 million streams according to Spotify. 900 million times was that song listened to on Spotify. So now Spotify declined to comment on it. However, on its website, the streaming platform says it has practices in place to prevent, detect, and mitigate artificial streaming. Now, you're wondering what payola is? Payola in the music industry is the name given to illegal practice of paying a commercial radio station to play a song without the station disclosing the payment. You cannot pay to get your song played. Under U.S. law, a radio station must disclose songs that were paid to play on the airways as a sponsored airtime. The number of times the songs are played can influence the perceived popularity of a song, and payola may use to influence these meters. The FCC treats payola as a violation to the sponsorship identification rules, which requires any broadcast of paid material to include a disclosure. So some people wonder, why would Drake do this lawsuit? Why would he do these petitions? They're thinking that it's ways for him to leverage his contract with Universal, that he might consider this as a way to sue them for breach of contract and get out of his deal. Others think that Not Like Us really, made Kendrick Lamar win the rap battle, hurt his career. So there is, in my opinion, does payola still happen? Absolutely. It just happens in a different way. And I think this could be a way that they kind of worked around it. Now, some songs on radio, they'll say, hey, listen, if your artist comes in, we'll play your song. And they kind of did with Justin Bieber growing up. Like, Justin Bieber showed up to every radio station, so they would play his song. And that was sort of the way they kind of grew him as an artist. So, I think it still happens. I think there's bribery a lot especially in radio, because everyone in radio is hurting. They need to figure out a way for people to click on these songs. So I think absolutely payola has happened. Is it happened with this Drake song? That I don't know. But yeah, it's how this settles, what happens from this, I don't know. I mean, it's a very uphill battle. Okay, number 5, Kristin Cavallari. For the past, 7 weeks almost, just about now, it feels like. It has to be at least 7 weeks. She's been on a Raw Rundown. She has a story every single week. She's got this podcast that she's really pushing. In fact, I'm just curious, are people tuning into the podcast from the story she goes on every week? Because the stories makes news, but those listeners translate, those readers translate into podcast listeners. Now she's going at Scott Disick. So Scott Disick reached out to her on social media, and Kristin outed her. Scott Disick wrote to her, sent her a DM, and goes, it's been such a long time. It's crazy that our lives are also ended up being kind of similar. The alleged message reads, I feel like it would be so good to see you catch up and just talk about the stress and all the different things you got to go through with kids and changing your life around over and over. Really miss you, though, and wish I could have reached out earlier. Disick also wrote, I guess, according to the message from Cavallari, so busy trying to be the best dad I can be. He gave her his phone number. And how does Kristin respond? Scott, you missed me after 17 years. And she's basically claiming that he was displaying classic manipulation tactics. Really, I don't know. Again, depends how people see this. I guess there was a lot of rumors back in the day that Scott and Kristin hooked up back in the day. Kristin became friends with Courtney, and there are some stories out there that I think Kristin thinks that Scott put out in the media of them two hooking up. Is that true? I don't know. My opinion, Scott's been seeing Kristin's news hit her name in the news a lot lately. Saw her story, says, hey, I can relate as far as being a sort of single parent, reaches out to her, say, hey, let's reconnect and just, I'd love to see what you're up to. It seems like you're doing all right. And I thought it didn't seem bad, but Kristin thought it was a moment to capitalize and keep her name out there. She puts her name in the news every single week. She knows what she's doing. She's a professional at this. She also was in the news this week, talk about her relationship with Nick Lachey. Kristin talked about how she dated Nick Lachey after Jessica Simpson did. And I guess when they just started dating, one of her close friends took a picture of Nick and Kristin out together somewhere, and it wasn't even a good photo, and sold the photo to a news outlet for $2,500, which she said really hurt her, but also taught her a lot about life. Everything Kristin touches now turns into news. I think this is the new chapter for her. I think she should have saved it all for a really good book. Is it worth putting in the podcast? That's, again, are you making enough money in the podcast or is it worth it? I think she could have made a really good book talking about these stories. But not all of them. Obviously, the Scott Disick thing is very timely. I don't know if it was the nicest thing to kind of out him as far as reaching out. Because, again, maybe he just wanted to reconnect with her and see how she's doing because she's in the news so much. It's not, and he basically, you open up the news, her name's out there. Oh, Kristin Cavallari. I'm going to reach out there and see how she's doing, catch up with her. So, but that's just my personal Kristin Cavallari story. To be honest with you, I'm just sick of talking about it. I respect it. I get it. We're all trying to hustle and make that money. I'm just sort of like over covering Kristin, but unfortunately I have to keep covering her because people click on the stories. So you guys have interest in her. I don't get it, but I will say this about Kristin Cavallari. One of the prettiest celebrities I've ever seen in person. I think she's just very naturally pretty. I don't really know her. I've never really met her. I've met her a handful of times. She would never say she remembered me, but like I've met her as like trying to paparazzi her on the streets, and she was nice enough, very pretty, but she's good at keeping her name in the news. Number 4, Wendy Williams has dementia, allegedly. Joining me is my friend Jessica Finn, senior reporter at the U.S. Sun, who broke the news. Jessica, tell me about what's going on with Wendy Williams.
So Wendy, basically a lawsuit was filed against Lifetime for releasing her documentary. And this lawsuit was filed back around February, right as the documentary was coming out. And this lawsuit has since been moved over to federal court from a New York State Supreme Court. And anyway, basically what's happened is that her guardian in a document has argued through the guardian's attorneys that Wendy is incapacitated, permanently incapacitated. And this particular document was saying that she's permanently incapacitated and that there's reasons for the conservatorship, the guardianship that she's in, and essentially that certain things should be redacted from the record when it comes to Wendy's health and Wendy's family. So I think it's specifically the words permanently incapacitated that have really kind of driven home the extent of Wendy's illness. I think that her fans have a lot of her fans have been largely, I think, kind of thinking that maybe one day she was going to make this miraculous recovery, that she was going to come back to TV, that she was going to host the Wendy Williams show again. So this kind of wording, and even though it's in a legal document, this is wording that her guardian has said. This isn't, we don't know if this is what what Wendy's doctors have said, but this is an argument that her guardian has put out, that she's actually permanently incapacitated. It's interesting because it doesn't seem like everybody in her circle exactly believes this kind of description of a diagnosis, I guess is what you would call it. I've seen some comments online from her son Kevin saying that it's trash, that she's permanently incapacitated, which is interesting because this is just coming from the Guardian's point of view, and it's part of an argument in a larger court case against Lifetime for the documentary that was released. But it's definitely interesting. I mean, we know that Wendy was diagnosed with alcohol-related brain damage back in 2019.
Wow.
And that was from my reporting from earlier this year. And then her guardian came out with a statement saying that she had the Bruce Willis dementia, the frontal temporal aphasia. So, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg in this situation, but Wendy certainly had a drinking problem that was so severe that it was causing her brain damage. And her son said, this was alcohol-induced dementia that she was experiencing. I mean, this was a woman who, this was a diagnosis that happened in her 50s. I mean, she's only 60 now. So this is definitely like, a bigger kind of emphasis on how much Wendy's situation has possibly progressed, and it's kind of a blow to her fan base in a really big way. I don't think that they expected or realized that this is something that's gotten to this point where she's permanently incapacitated.
So, when you hear her guardian make these claims, do you think that Wendy will ever make this comeback that I think a lot of people are waiting on to see if she ever comes back to at least radio? We heard, obviously she's considered a podcast at one point, but do we see her ever really working again?
I gotta say, we haven't like really seen her out, minus a trip to a health food store in New Jersey with her son, which happened a few months ago. I spoke to the people at the store. They were like, you could tell she's not all there. They were surprised that she was as functioning as she was, but they said that there were times where she would like look off in the distance and she was losing touch with what was going on around her. I can't imagine that there is a coming back from brain damage related to alcoholism. I can't imagine that there is coming back from dementia. These are progressive problems, dementia is certainly a progressive disease. I can't imagine, that this is going to be something where she's going to at some point resume her throne, as so many people are hoping.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica Finn, senior reporter at the U.S. Sun. She's the one who broke the story 24 hours before everyone else. She's on top of Wendy Williams. Pretty much everything you see from Wendy Williams has been broken by Jessica Finn, senior reporter at the U.S. Sun. Jessica, thank you for always joining us.
Thank you.
Number 3, Tom Schwartz and Tom Sandoval's Los Angeles bar, Schwartz and Sandy, is closing after 2 years. The Vanderpump Rules stars shared the news, saying that they agreed it was the right choice after navigating both financial challenges and Sandoval's now infamous cheating scandal with castmate Raquel Leviss while in his relationship with longtime partner Ariana Madix. Deciding to close the doors was one of the hardest decisions we ever made, Tom Schwartz said. He's also said, we agonized over for quite some time because we were because we believe it's a great bar, still ripe with potential. Unfortunately, the current climate for this business is pretty rough. Recovering from all the negativity post-scandal wasn't easy, and the slimmer margins post-COVID made it even harder to bounce back. There's not a lot of room for error in the restaurant and bar business. Sandoval calls Schwartz and Sandy's an amazing learning experience, saying the plan to close its doors was a decision they didn't take lightly and made as a team. When the bar first opened in November 2022, 4 years after the successful launch of Tom Tom, their joint venture with Lisa Vanderpump, Schwartz said the two friends were more ambitious and optimistic than ever. They said, "We can take." He said, "We can take you into any corner of the bar and tell you a story about a challenge we overcame or fixated on far too long." It's sad. I got to be honest with you. It's sad to see these guys. I know they wanted this to work out. They had financial investments into this. They worked hard to make this work. Obviously, the hit to this Sandoval did not help out business for a little bit. Like you said, the margins for the bars is kind of it's hard. It's hard to make money, especially in the bar industry now. You have to have a lot of repeat customers, and I feel like people going to that bar were mostly Bravo people. The real estate in California is expensive. They had a great location. Problem is that great location was very expensive. So the amount of money you have to make money and make it work, it's just tough. And it's sad to see their business go to waste. I mean, just fall apart. I mean, it's tough. I feel for them on this, but I think this other news goes even harder for them. The number 2 story, Bravo, is going to bring back Vanderpump Rules, but for another season. But this time it's going to be with a whole new cast. The network announced on Tuesday that the season 12 will be feature Lisa Vanderpump and a close new group of close-knit servers, SUR servers, get it, who are completely involved in one another as their iconic predecessors, whatever, I can't even say the word. The new season begins production next year, and a premiere date and cast will be announced later. The executive producer said it was a thrill to kind of build the show over the years, build on the legacy of the series, doing it all over again. Lisa Vanderpump released a statement saying, pretty much, she said the last 12 years of filming has been an extraordinary run full of laughter, tears, and everything between. I can't thank enough of those who have shared their lives. How I love you all. In the restaurant business, one shift always gives way to another. Cheers to the next generation of Vanderpump Rules. I think this show just ran its course. I mean, Sandoval was great for the show. It was great to see the follow up, but I don't think you could really do much with these cast members. But I think really what it came down to, there's 12 seasons of this show. A lot of these people have been on the show for a long time. Every time these people come back on the show, they have to pay them more and more and more. So the show's getting very expensive to keep up with their contracts and pay these people. So they'd rather bring in a new cast, pay them less, and build up their storylines because it became too it became too much, in my opinion, like Melrose Place. They all knew each other. They were all stars in a way. It was just, it wasn't real. It became, I know it's not too real, but the illusion, in my opinion, as a fan, it just became too much. It was just, it became too much like Days of Our Lives and not back to the reality show that we all wanted. I mean, I think when it comes to reality show, there's some natural kind of storylines that come and evolve from it. This one just kind of, it's did its course, and at the end of the day, how much money can they keep paying Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz and Katie Maloney and all these people to keep doing the show? Now, I'm sure some of these people do well. Ariana's hosting the 6th season of Love Island in USA. She's just at Broadway. Tom Schwartz did a cameo for Summer House, so he'll figure out a way. I don't know what he's going to do as far as the bar. Sandoval was just on Traitors, so he probably made good money on that. Whatchamacallit, the one Sheena Shea, she's doing the other show, The Valley. Kristin Doty's just announced that she's having a baby. So I'll be curious what they do for the next chapter in their lives. I think the one guy is a DJ, James Kennedy. I think he'll probably make the most money than all of them at this point. I wonder who'll make more money. Will it be him, Jason Kennedy, or will it be Ariana Madix? Ariana's getting a lot of hosting jobs, which pay well and they're great work. James is doing these DJ gigs, which pay really well. I mean, I'm sure he's getting at least 20 grand to show up. If he's doing 2 a weekend, 80, 160, it adds up. I mean, he'll be making at least 25 grand a month just DJing. I mean, at least 25 grand a month just DJing. So he's got his things going. All right. The number one story of the week goes back into Liam Payne. Now, Liam Payne, they're saying that he wasn't just trying to commit suicide, it sounds like. According to what the new reports are, he was trying to run from his hotel room. He was trying to escape his hotel room. Why would he try to escape his hotel room? Now, there is video and surveillance video. Liam Payne was in the hotel in Argentina, and he was in the lobby. Seemed like he was a little bit under some, he wasn't sober. It seemed like it seems like based on the video, it seems like these guys who hotel employees had to carry him back to his hotel room just to make sure he would stay safe. He had to be intoxicated with some substances in his system. So the hotel employees brought him back to his hotel room. We talked about this earlier in the week. The hotel employees brought him back to his hotel room. And then once they brought him to his hotel room, they called 911 saying, hey, we had to put this guy in his hotel room. He was being kind of out of control, but there is a balcony there, and we do feel like he could be at risk to jump over the balcony. Now, why would you guys put him in that situation when a guy like that you give him a balcony, he's going to jump. And according to his past, he did not like being locked up. So it looked like that he jumped. He was trying to escape his room. He was trying to leave the hotel, escape his room. And that's when he dropped to his death, unfortunately. How do they know that? Well, I guess when he was going back to his room, he didn't have a bag on. He didn't have a hat on. So when he went to his room, when they found his body, they found a bag near the body and a hat near the body. So it seems like the Argentinian police potentially may have, allegedly, sort of wanted to protect the hotel and their reputation regarding this story. But I mean, there's a lot going on here. There's also reports that his friend, that I guess Liam had a friend who was supposed to be with him, and that was his sort of guardian. And the guardian was not with him at the time. Where was the guardian during all this? I guess the dad, Liam's dad, had this guy in Liam's life to be like, all right, I need you to protect this guy. I need you kind of to make sure he's safe at all times. So it's really weird what's going on here. I mean, I don't want to put the tinfoil hat on, but I'm surprised this story is not. It was the number one story of the week, I think, because a lot of people are really interested in the the conspiracies of this stuff. So it did get a lot of clicks, but I'm surprised more people aren't talking about why he like it wasn't suicide. It might not have been the drugs. I mean, he had drugs in his system, but he was trying to flee his hotel, and there was surveillance video of him being brought to his hotel room by hotel employees by three people. If you thought he was at risk, why would you drop him off at his room? So, but yeah, it's just a really sad situation, and yeah, it's yeah, sad. Rest in peace, Liam Payne. Nice guy. Met him once. I remember I met him a week before he really blew up. I met him at Z100, and a week later, One Direction was the biggest stars in the world. And at the time, we were talking about drinking in bars, like in New York compared to like Europe. And they were super chill, nice, happy to be there guys. And the cool part is I noticed with the group, I mean, I was talking to Harry Styles. This was, again, a week before they really blew up. They really like liked each other. They bonded with each other. It seems like they just got along with each other. So that was pretty cool. But I guess at the end of the day, I think that's really what this guy, this guy Roger, who is a friend of Liam, 35-year-old guy. He was one of the men charged in connection to the One Direction star's death after he plummeted from the hotel. The Argentinian prosecutors are claiming that, are saying that he had something to do with it. I don't know, man. I think the Argentinian police fucked up. And I really do think, we've said before, the reports saying what was in the system came out so quick, and that never happens in the U.S. I'm not comparing us to the U.S., but they jumped to conclusion way too quick, and I don't think there was a long enough investigation regarding this death. I think there's a lot more to come from this, and yeah, it's pretty sad. Thank you guys for joining me for the Raw Rundown. I hope you guys had a good holiday weekend. Dax will be back here next week, helping me out, carrying the weight of this podcast, because that's what he does. Follow us on our private Facebook, Go Off the Record. Follow me at Adam Glyn. Follow Dax Holt at Dax Holt. We'll see you guys next week.
What's up, guys? If you like that video, there's plenty more where that came from. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, so we can just feed you all the goodness daily. Hurry up. Come on, let's go.